The winter break is over. It's finally time to get ourselves into MyTeam Season 3. If you haven't seen the pre-season, go and check that one out right now, as it is linked in the description. You can see we are still Spec 1 in marketing, and the rest is almost Spec 2 and Spec 3. And that's what we need, because otherwise we can't upgrade our car, even though we are the best on the grid. And this season I'm going to focus purely on durability. Sometimes I'm going to do a upgrade on aerodynamics, chassis, and the power, the engine if it's needed, compared to Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull. But without durability, you can't win a championship. I think that Ferrari has shown that clearly in 2022. So yeah, we've opted to go for a 16 race calendar, as we are forwarding time towards the Australian Grand Prix, of course. So if you haven't subscribed yet, then please do, as we are currently on 128 subscribers, as we are having a marketing department. Let's see what it is as we are going to the event. I think this is a new rival. Yes, it is. As you can see, we can choose between Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Max Verstappen. So the only option to go for us is either Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, as we have had George Russell before. So I think I'm going for Lewis Hamilton, as I don't know exactly where the Mercedes stands, but I think they are definitely worse than us, so we should be able to beat them, as we are getting to do some more pre-season stuff before we get into the first race. As you can see, we have 2.3k resource points, and we are doing a major front downforce upgrade, and that will put us in second place in the aerodynamics department, or so I hope, at least. If the upgrade gets on, but we need to wait until the 3rd of March for that, as we are looking for another upgrade, but I think we do not have enough resource points to do another upgrade, and we are going back to advance time until we are at the first Grand Prix, which is of course at the 7th of April, because it's not the first one in real life anymore. So we have to wait until April for our season to start, and all our upgrades go on, so that's good to see, as we are getting into the first race here in Australia. It's the first race of the season, which means that I'm going to show you a bit extra about the weekend, as we are getting out for the first time here in Melbourne to go out for practice. Normally I just skip practice or do the quick practice to get enough resource points to upgrade our car, but of course you can't do that in the first practice of the first race of the season. So yeah, this is our car beautifully out on track, but the cams didn't work that good to show us the side of our car and to show us our actual livery, as the sponsors still haven't gone on. I don't know why, but they still don't show on the car. I even tried it after the race, and I don't know what is wrong with it, but it's still not on the car, as we are now starting our lap on softs. I thought, like, why not? Of course, we have already put in a few laps on the mediums. So let's see what our pace is here. As you can see, Perez, Lawson, and Latifi are all on the hards, because they are just starting to do their first laps. As Lawson is back in Formula 1, of course, he was my teammate in Season 1, but we've dropped him for Jenson Button, who is now out of Formula 1 for the second time around. And now our teammate is Carlos Sainz. As you can see, we are a dark red color on the minimap, and I forgot about Alfa Romeo, but you can see now the results for practice 1. It's Carlos Sainz with a good lap on the softs. We are in P4, so that gives us hope for qualifying and the race, but the race will be in the rain, so that will be difficult. But of course I forgot about Alfa Romeo and their color, so we need to change that up for the next race. And I'm going for yellow because that one isn't chosen yet, so let's go into qualifying. And we are now in qualifying. You can see I'm not out on track yet because I have to choose my car setup. I have a setup for every race, and you can see I was thinking about going for a dry setup, but of course the race is in the wet, so I've opted to go for a wet setup, and this is the first wet setup that I have on this game. And as you can see, it's a bit different to the dry setup, of course, as the aerodynamics is 37, 34 wings. And as I see this now in the editing phase of this video, I think about why I was so slow in qualifying. You will see it in a minute. But the normal dry setup is about 20 wings for front and rear wing. So there's a huge difference in between dry and wet, so we will be slower on the straight, of course, but hopefully that will work out in the race, as we will have a bit more pace, as I'm not doing any rhyme on purpose, but it just comes out like that. As we are in our first lap here in qualifying, you can see Lando Norris puts in a 1:17.8, but just in a moment time, Carlos Sainz is going to cross the line and put in a 1:17.2, as we are still just trying to hold on to a good lap. And looking at the last corner right now, Charles Leclerc goes even faster in his Ferrari. He is still in Ferrari, but of course Carlos Sainz isn't anymore, as we put in a 1:18.5. We are 1.3 seconds slower than our teammate at the moment, and we are the slowest of everybody at the moment. But of course we still have a few drivers who aren't fast at all. So you can see Carlos Sainz only a few thousands behind Leclerc, and we are all the way down in P19. So you can see Latifi, Schumacher and Dan Ticktum are behind me, but of course Dan Ticktum is a rookie, so he will have another lap, as we are doing our second run of qualifying, and we are trying to improve a lot, because otherwise we will be out in Q1, and that's not what we need to do, as our teammate is up there in the top 2 at the moment. So yeah, we are trying to improve as much as possible. Of course, in this first sector I didn't make that many mistakes, so we only gain 1/10 as we are continuing throughout the lap to see if we can gain more and more time to eventually get ourselves out of the bottom 6 it is in my team, as we are now 2/10 clear of our previous time. But of course we still need to find another second to be equal to our teammates, as the red curves here in Australia are absolutely deadly, because you can just kill your entire car by running over them. But as we are crossing the finish line, we gain 3.5 tenths, and it's good enough for P15. But of course the rest of the guys still need to make their lap and still need to improve as we get back to the garage, and you can see underbody damage, and it's taking 2.5 minutes to repair, and there's only 3.5 minutes in this session. So that means that we can't do anything in this session anymore. You can see I am still trying to modify my setup as much as possible by changing the pressure in the rear tires, because of course I saw already that I couldn't do anything. As you can see now, the results for qualifying one, you can see my teammate in P6 with only 700s behind P1. It was actually Ocon, so that's great to see the Alpines in front, but of course we are all the way down in P20. So for us it's a Q1 loss, and we are out of qualifying, which is not good. Of course we have the best car at the moment and we are out in Q1. That's not what should happen. We of course went for the wet setup, so that's an explanation for why we are a second off the pace. But I think we should go to the race.
No more testing, no more practice. This is the real deal, and it's make or break here at round 1 of this year's Formula One World Championship. We're a stone's throw from the enormous Port Phillip Bay for today's race at the 3.28-mile Albert Park circuit. It's a bumpy racing surface here, and the 14 corners could prove especially difficult in the wet conditions. So watch out for a safety car at some point during this Grand Prix. It's It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. An immense lap from Carlos Sainz yesterday puts him in pole position.
Oh, send it!
With Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Sergio Perez, and Russell, Liam Lawson, Ocon, Hamilton, and Pierre Gasly, Ricciardo, Norris, Daniel Ticktum, and Albon, Schwartzman, Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhou, and Lance Stroll, the engineer, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? The rain is falling today as battle commences for the World Championship once again. They've done very little running in these conditions, of course. Natalie Pinkham, this could make a mess of our expectations coming into this Grand Prix.
That's very true. If you want to mix up a motor race, a little bit of water on the circuit will do the trick nicely. The key to success today will be ensuring you're on the right tyre at the right time and making sure you can get them up to temperature.
Our teammate is on pole position. Oh my god. Oh. Yeah. I can't say anything else than I have made a huge blunder in qualifying. Let's see what we can do in the race as we are choosing for a one stop. Of course, I was trying to do a no stop, but as you saw, the tire wear just gets too worse to even try and go for a no stop. Yeah, you can see Sainz in P1, Leclerc and Verstappen behind him, and we are all the way down in P19. Magnussen has a penalty, so that's the reason why he is behind us, because of course we qualified in P20. So that's not good for Haas to get their first penalty in already in the first race. And as you can see, it's intermediate tire condition. So we are going for a beautiful wet race here to start off our season. To be honest, I'm not that fast in the wet, so I'm trying to be as fast as possible in this race to gain just a few points. That's the bare minimum that we should get with the performance of our car. So as we are now lining up towards the grid to get our first race going, yeah, we are still trying to get as many points as possible, of course, as we want to win the Constructors Championship this season. But that's not going to happen if I'm qualifying in P20 or P19 or anything that's not in the top 10. So we need to perform better in next qualifying. But let's go and start the race then. As the lights are coming on to start the Australia GP. And it's lights out and away we go. A good start from Carlos Sainz makes him lead the way here in lap 1. Let's hope that he can win this race as we are still in P22. You can see us all the way down in last place. Of course, we are not the best in starting and definitely not in starting in the wet. So let's just try and make a dive bomb coming into the next corners. As you can see, we take a dive bomb into the third corner and we are all the way up into P16, 17. Is Schwartzman going to overtake us once more? No, he is not, and we are now behind Ticktum and Magnussen, and they are fighting side by side. That's not what you need to do, because you will lose time to the guys in front, the likes of Albon, as Carlos Sainz is still leading the way all the way in lap 1 still, but now already in sector 3. So let's hope that he can get a good race as Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen will hunt him down to get that first place as well. But you can see in lap 2 now we are still behind Ticktum and Magnussen. Ticktum doing a good job and staying in P14 at the moment in his McLaren. McLaren has dropped off massively compared to last season because yeah, Vettel won a lot of races in that McLaren and they also became champions actually. So I don't know what happened in their development because yeah, they lost a lot of components into this season as we are still behind them. You can see Carlos Sainz puts in the fastest lap at the moment, and you would think that Guan Yu Zhou is at the moment our teammate, but he's not. It's just that we didn't think about him compared to our color that you can see next to my name in the top left corner. but we are dropping a bit back to Magnussen because I don't want to put too much heat into my engine. I want to keep it as cool as possible to get a few races in with this engine as we are now catching up once again. I want to overtake these guys as Albon and I think it's Norris and Gasly who are in front of Albon are just doing 2 fast laps compared to Tictum and Magnussen as we are going down the inside. A beautiful overtake for P15 is not good enough, of course. We still need to make up a lot of positions as we get a replay from that overtake. You can see we go down the inside and it's just a easy overtake. So yeah, we are now in P15. You can see the gap to Albon is 6 seconds and Tictum is just not fast enough to get ourselves back into that fight. You can see on the minimap it goes from P13 all the way up to P7, I think that is. So we need to get to that back to eventually get a few points for ourselves. But we are still in lap 8 behind Tictum. He's doing a really good job at defending from us, but we need to make that overtake happen as soon as possible, because otherwise we will just have too few laps to get that gap down and get ourselves up into the points paying position. As we are now really close behind Tictum in turns 9 and 10. Can we go for the overtake? It looks like it. We have a good exit and we used ERS. We have a lot of it as we are going for the same move we did on Magnussen just a few laps later, and we are now up into P13 and you can see Tictum didn't have a good run through that corner, so now we have a bit of a gap to him as well, and it's good to see because otherwise they could fight back and try to overtake us. But yeah, you can see we've lost 7.5 seconds to Albon in just 11 laps. So we need to push as much as possible to get back at them. But we still have 18 laps to do so, as we have a gap of 2.5 seconds behind us luckily. So we are in some free air and we are free to push. As you can see in lap 11, it's still Carlos Sainz who leads the way with a constant lead of around 3 seconds compared to Charles Leclerc in P2 and Max Verstappen in P3. So not that much is happening in front of us. They are all still just going around the circuit to finish after 29 laps, but we are now gaining on Albon around 1 second per lap if we get a good lap in. Otherwise we don't gain anything. You can see the gap is now underneath 7 seconds. Of course we need to get some good laps in to catch up to them, as now the first guys are pitting in lap 14. You can see Norris and Albon in the pits, and I think it's Ocon and Hamilton as well. Yes, you can see. So we are gaining a lot of positions and we are finally up into the top 10. But of course we still need to make another pit stop as we put in a 1:30.5. And compared to the other guys, we are losing around 1.5 seconds to the guys who are new intermediates. So if we would do a no stop, then we wouldn't gain anything from it, as I decided to go not into the pits just yet. You can see Lawson having a great race at Alpine. He's in P7 at the moment and he's not losing any positions anymore as they are coming out of the pits and we are up into P6. But as I've said before, we still need to make that pit stop with only 13 laps remaining in this race. And I was hoping for a bit of dry racing, but as you can see, we make a late call into the pits at the end of lap 16 and we are going in for another set of intermediates. Of course I was hoping for dry weather because then we can go a bit faster, but of course we are on a wet setup, so we would lose even more time in the dries. As we have a good stop and we are still 7 seconds behind Albon. We need to gain 7.5 seconds in just 13 laps time, so let's hope that we can do that. But of course Albon and Norris are not that fast as we have put in a purple first sector and we are going for a fastest lap, but of course we do not get a good exit out of turn 10. But yeah, you can see gap to Albon is 6 seconds as Carlos Sainz put in a 1:28.8. But unfortunately Norris and Albon are dropping away from the back ahead of them as we put in the fastest lap, just 1/10 faster than Sainz. But of course I do not get a point from this as I am still outside that top 10, and I think we are not gaining any points this race because As you can see, the gap is still 5 seconds to Albon ahead, and we just have a lot of clear air running as there's a yellow flag behind us. And I think that's Guan Yu Zhou, who is out of the Grand Prix, and that could mean that we get a safety car, which would be really good for us, as that would mean that we can catch up to the top 13, and it's a virtual safety car. Oh no, that's the worst that can happen, because a safety car would help us, and that would mean that we could get back at everybody who is in front of us, and normal racing would just mean that we could go and be faster than them, but of course a virtual safety car just loses us time to catch up to the driver ahead of us. But now starting lap 20, the final 10 laps are in, and it's once again a green flag running, but the Alfa Romeo isn't away yet. You can see still yellow flags here in sector 1, but around now his car is away, luckily, as we are now catching up to Albon once again. It's only 2.5 seconds to him, but as you can see on the minimap, it's still a long way to Gasly, and I think it's Ricciardo ahead of him to get into the points, but we are not going to get that, as there are only 8 laps remaining. So we are trying to just get as many positions as possible, just for yeah, to be proud of ourselves for getting a good race in. But of course P12 is not good at all for us, as there's another yellow flag. Would this mean that is a safety car finally? I don't think so, as it's Mick Schumacher in the Aston Martin. But we are now getting close to Albon, so if we get another virtual safety car, then we would lose so many yeah, attempts to overtake Albon. Of course he is in a Williams. Williams is not the best car, but still I want to overtake him as fast as possible. As my teammate is luckily still in P1, as we are now within 1 second of Albon. It's lap 26. So you can see it takes a few laps to get close to Albon, as the dirty air is still in Formula 1. Of course it's a lot less than in 2021, 2020 and so on, but it's still there. So as soon as I get within 1 second, it's really difficult to actually make that overtake happen. But we put in a purple first sector, which is really great. We get a great run through turns 9 and 10, and we are trying to overtake the same as we did to Magnussen, the same as we did to Dixon, and we are going for the inside line here into sector 3, and we are up into P13, and now it's still Norris who we need to overtake to get P12. But unfortunately the gap ahead of him is 8 seconds, so we are not getting any more than that. The maximum that we can get out of this race is P12, so there's no points for us. Of course we are not the fastest guy on track anymore, as we do not have the fastest lap anymore, as we are now in the final lap of the Grand Prix. You can see we are still in sector 2, but it is our teammate who is rounding the final corner, and he's leading the way from start to finish, and he's going to be a winner in our team. It's the first time that somebody else wins in our team, and it's Carlos Sainz who takes the checkered flag here in Australia, which is great to see. Of course 25 points for him, as we still need to fight against Norris to get ourselves up into P12. We do the same move 4 times in the same Grand Prix, so this is basically my only overtaking point, as we are now getting towards the checkered flag, and it's race over for us. It's P19 to P12. Not that bad, of course, still 7 positions, but it's not good at all compared to where we are in the development race. So yeah, unfortunate for us, but a good race from my teammate Carlos Sainz.
And with that, we wrap up yet another incredible Grand Prix weekend. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Rain always has the potential to liven up a race and mix up the order, and they've taken full advantage of that to claim the victory today. It's a bit of a lottery when the conditions are like this, but they've managed to stay on the circuit and have come out on top.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
So this is our podium. You can see a beautiful entrance from Carlos Sainz, and it's a double podium for Ferrari. And it's Leclerc in P2 and Fernando Alonso back at Ferrari, of course. If you have missed that, then go check out the pre-season, because yeah, you can see a lot of drivers change teams, and Alonso is back to Ferrari. But it's good to see that my teammate has the pace to win a Grand Prix. because this will help us a lot compared to what Jensen did and what Liam did. So as you can see, the result for the race is Sainz, Leclerc, Alonso, Verstappen, Russell, Perez, Lawson, Ocon, and I think it's, yes, Hamilton and Ricciardo who round up the top 10. And we finish half a minute behind our teammate. It's actually 26 points for our teammate, so that's a grand slam for him, as he got pole position, he led every lap of the race, and he has the fastest lap as well. So that's his first grand slam ever, I think, in Formula 1. As you can see, Carlos Sainz leads the way in the driver standings, and in the constructor standings is Ferrari in P1, as we are now in P2. So we need to get a good season. Of course, with our upgraded durability, we should be able to get that. But that is it for today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe. Next time around we will renew our sponsors, but that's not anymore. That's not for this race anymore. Let's hope that we can get our sponsors on the car then. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.